Morning light poured through the high windows like liquid gold, but the house felt colder than ever. As Mama Grace, Amara moved quietly, a bucket in one hand and a cloth in the other. She had learned that truth appears when no one feels watched. Today, she wanted to see how far the rot had spread. The corridor outside the study smelled of stale cologne and ink, the scent of signatures used as weapons. She wiped the skirting slowly, listening as footsteps and whispers drifted from behind closed doors like smoke finding cracks. Chaik arrived in a rush, phone pressed to his ear, voice sharp with impatience. Move funds through the consultant. Don't use the family account, use the shell company. He didn't notice the cleaner stooped beside the wall. He never noticed the invisible. Minutes later, the accountant slipped in through the side entrance, sweating in the cool air. They vanished into the study. Amara edged closer, cradling her mop, head bowed. Through the thin wood, she heard the rustle of papers, the scrape of a pen, the grim clink of 2 glasses used to seal unclean promises. When the men finally left, she glided in like a shadow. The desk wore the confusion of careless greed. Folders half closed, a laptop still humming, a drawer ajar as if it sighed. She wiped slowly, reading without reading, letting titles pass across her eyes: asset liquidation schedule, Port Harcourt Yard, offer, client escrow. Then she saw it, a stamped letter authorizing a sale with a forged signature that looked almost like hers but lacked the patience of her hand. Her breath lodged in her chest. She took only what memory could carry and left the page untouched. In the dressing room that became Ifeoma's private stage, Betrayal wore perfume and pearls. Ifeoma stood before the mirror in Amara's gold necklace, lips painted in triumph. "Do you like it?" she asked a friend, who snapped photos for a party later that night. "I am the family's future." She laughed and called the stylist for a gown fitting, then waved the cleaner in without looking. "Mop carefully. No streaks." Amara bent until her back ached, watching the woman who had once cried at her birthday now practice a smile that belonged to another person entirely. Servants no longer moved with the calm rhythm of a well-run home. Their steps darted like small birds escaping thunder. Ifeoma had introduced fines for slow work and waste of tissue, as if control could be built from petty cruelty. That afternoon, a younger maid broke a plate. Ifeoma demanded the girl's month's salary. The maid cried, asking for mercy. Amara stepped forward, voice quiet. "Madam, the plate can be replaced. The girl's mother is ill." Ifeoma's eyes hardened. "And who are you to speak?" Her hand cut the air. "Out of my sight, cleaner." Amara bowed, rage burning like coals underwater. In the kitchen, Amara found what sorrow looks like when it hides. Daniel washing his own plate, gaze far away, mouth pressed thin. He turned when he felt her near. "Mama Grace," he said, "do you believe people can change?" She folded a towel, steadying her voice. "People reveal themselves when the lights go out," she said softly. He nodded, as if he understood the secret meaning. He picked a Bible from the counter and left quietly. As he walked away, she whispered a short prayer that did not ask for power or wealth, only for the boy's goodness to survive. That night, the house manager unlocked the storeroom and left. Amara slipped in and closed the door without a sound. Dust floated in her lamp's small circle of light. She opened a metal cabinet and found unfiled invoices, rushed receipts, and a grey envelope stamped with a law firm's crest. Inside it lay something colder than money, a spreadsheet printed in tight rows, Okeke consolidated, asset transfer plan, accelerated. She traced the line items with a finger that wanted to tremble and did not. Warehouses, estates, offshore accounts. Each line was a cut. At the bottom, a signature, C. Okeke, acting principal. When she turned, her elbow brushed another folder, and papers slid to the floor with a sigh. Footsteps approached. She killed the lamp. The door jerked. A torch beam sliced the dark. The guard peered in, eyes narrowed. "Who's there?" he whispered. Amara held her breath so tightly stars prickled behind her eyes. The torch hovered over the fallen pages, over the broom against the wall, over the old woman's shadow behind a shelf of unused glassware. Seconds turned to hours. Then an urgent call crackled through his radio. "Gate. Now." The light vanished. The door slammed. She waited before exhaling, the taste of fear bitter and metallic. By morning, her hands were steady again. She needed proof that could not be laughed away, the kind of truth that walks into a room wearing law. She borrowed eyes. An old phone Ngozi hid in the pantry, set to camera, sound off. From the corridor vent, she filmed signatures landing like blows. She photographed ledgers left open by arrogance. She copied a client list in her head, each name a link in the chain. She never took anything that would warn them. She touched only what the mind can carry and the lens could borrow. Greed does not keep quiet when it believes it has won. That evening, Chaik toasted two men in the study. To closure, he said. Mother's era is over. We will diversify, expand, and clean up. The men laughed, as if sweeping a mother out of history were good housekeeping. What about Daniel? One asked. Chaik shrugged. He is sentimental, not strategic. He will be handled. Handle. The word felt cold in Amara's ears. She steadied her breathing and kept her mop moving in slow circles, the floor shining like the face of a new coin. The party that followed was a parade of borrowed glory. Ifeoma descended the stairs in a sequined dress that swallowed light. Guests filled the hall with noise, their praises sticky and sweet. You are a pillar, they told Chaik. You carry your mother's legacy. He smiled with the sharpness of a blade tucked in silk. Amara carried trays, wiped glasses, and listened as conversations knitted a net. One man boasted of getting the Port Harcourt yard at a family discount. Another bragged he had tamed the sentimental shareholder. Each sentence was a thread pulling at her resolve. Late that night, silence returned with clumsy feet. Amara entered the study one last time and opened the bottom drawer she had noticed earlier. Beneath a file of vendor bids lay a small USB drive labeled Bridge. She stared at it, heart thudding. She could not remove it without signaling a theft. Instead, she photographed it, lingering on a unique scratch across the casing, then returned it exactly as she found it. On the desk, a printed email. Subject: Accelerated Proxy, Mother's signature. Her breath hitched. She read just enough to learn the method, then left the paper untouched. The next afternoon, she almost lost everything. While polishing the stair rail, her scarf slipped as Ifeoma came up with two friends. For a fraction of a second, her face showed too much of who she was. Ifeoma paused, eyes narrowing. Have we met before? The hallway shrank. Amara lowered her chin. No, madam, she croaked. One friend laughed. You and your faces. Ifeoma smirked and kept walking. Only when they disappeared did Amara realize she had clenched the cloth so hard her palms burned. She tied the scarf tighter and whispered, God, keep me hidden until truth is ready. Chaik's cruelty took a different shape, a businesslike distance dressed as leadership. He called a full staff meeting and cut allowances to reduce waste. He replaced the gardener who had watched Daniel grow from a toddler. When Daniel protested, Chaik's voice chilled the room. Sentiment is expensive, he said. Survival requires strength. Later, Daniel found Mama Grace in the hallway and leaned against the wall like a tired tree. Sometimes I feel like I am the only one who remembers her the way she was, he said. You are not alone, Amara replied, and her voice nearly broke. News crept in from outside like a draft under a locked door. A journalist emailed the house manager asking questions about sudden asset sales. The manager panicked and ran to Chaik. Ignore them, Chaik said. By the time they publish, we will be untouchable. But fear grows legs when ignored. 2 days later, the journalist appeared at the gate, polite and persistent. The guards shooed him away, but Amara watched from the kitchen, memorizing his face. Men who ask questions without raising their voice are dangerous to lies and friends to buried truth. That evening, Amara hid in the linen closet while Chaik paced the corridor on a call. If Daniel continues to resist, freeze his access. He can have allowances but no decisions. Silence. Then, yes, if necessary, send him abroad to the innovation program. He will be out of the way. A plan wrapped in kindness, exile disguised as opportunity. Amara pressed her forehead to the wood, fighting the urge to burst into the hall and end the play at once. But endings require timing. Truth is music that collapses if played too soon. In the pantry, she and Ngozi met like quiet conspirators. Ngozi's hand shook as she passed a tiny notebook. These are dates, calls, and names, she whispered. If anything happens to me, take it to Mr. Adeyemi. Amara nodded, feeling the cost of loyalty on another woman's skin. You will live to see the morning after the storm, Amara said. Hold your courage. The house may turn against you. Ngozi smiled weakly. The house was never ours, madam. But God sees. 2 nights later, the house manager celebrated a deal with Chaik and left a folder on the dining table while bragging on the phone. Amara crossed the room in silence, lifted the cover, and met the face of her own betrayal. A power of attorney drafted months earlier, dated the week she died. The forged signature sat like a counterfeit smile. The witness line carried a name she recognized, a notary who owed the family favors. She did not touch the pages. She only looked until the handwriting burned into her mind like a brand, then closed the folder and wiped the table until it shone. If greed is a storm, then cruelty is its lightning. Ifeoma confronted a cook for using too much oil, and in her fury, threw a ladle that splashed hot stew across the woman's hand. The cook cried out, and Ifeoma rolled her eyes. "Acting," she said. "Cold water is enough." Amara took the woman to the sink, ran water across blistered skin, and whispered a psalm under her breath. Ifeoma watched them, annoyed by tenderness itself. "This house needs discipline, not sympathy," she snapped, and turned away as if mercy were noise. On Sunday, Daniel lit a candle by the portrait in the hallway and stood there longer than usual. The flame made his face look older, like grief had carved small maps around his eyes. "Mama," he murmured, "if you can hear me, guide me." Amara stood at the corridor's end, hands pressed to the mop handle, heart caught between heaven and earth. She wished to give him an answer, but the answer was not ready. She had to finish gathering the kind of truth that even wolves must obey. The next day, she carried a tray into the study and found the laptop open to an email thread with a subject line that made her throat tighten. Confirmation. Final transfer, Monday 10 a.m. The buyer's name was not a stranger. It was a rival who had once tried to strip her late husband's company. She took 2 photos with the silent phone, one of the screen, one of the stamped schedule on the desk. She wiped the mouse, straightened the chair, and left the room exactly as she found it, as if greed had brushed its own hair. That night, Daniel stood up to Chaik in the dining room. It was not a loud argument. It was worse, quiet, firm, and full of truth. "Our mother built this house with dignity," Daniel said. "Father led with honor. You are selling memory for noise." Chaik laughed without humor. "Children talk of honor. Men talk of results." Ifeoma clapped once, amused. "Finish your food, Daniel." He left the table. Amara followed at a distance and found him in the garden, looking at the sky like a traveler searching for a star he knew only by story. The near discovery came with the scent of rain. As Amara crossed the hall, a draft lifted her scarf again. Chaik rounded the corner and froze, eyes catching something familiar in the line of her jaw, the set of her cheek. He stepped closer. "What is your name?" he asked. Time thinned. "Grace," she said, voice low. He studied her face with the unkind focus of a man hunting a memory he refuses to honor. Then he snorted. "My mother chose better staff," he said, and brushed past, carrying a cloud of cologne and threat. Amara slept little. In the small bed in the servants' quarters, she held her journal under thin light and wrote with a blunt pencil, "I have seen how greed laughs and how it dines. I have seen love sit alone and pray. I have evidence that fits inside the mouth of law. Tomorrow I will move. Not to destroy, but to save what can still be saved." She closed the book and asked for one more day of hidden eyes. One more day to bind the rope of truth. Dawn came with a sky like clean paper. In the kitchen, she poured tea she did not drink and listened to the house breathe. A courier arrived at the gate with a sealed envelope, for acting principal, urgent. The guard signed, and the envelope changed hands twice before vanishing into the study. Amara knew what it meant. The final instructions had arrived. After today, pieces of her life would belong to others. She had one chance left to stop the falling wall from crushing the last honest heart inside. She finished mopping the corridor, then nodded to Ngozi, who passed quietly with a laundry basket. Every step now mattered. She would call Mr. Adeyemi with a voice he had not heard in weeks. She would invite the journalist to the revelation at noon. And she would walk, still wrapped in rags, into a dining room where masks believed they were faces, and read them their own reflections. But before that, she needed one more proof that no tongue could undo. She entered the study when it entered, opened the bottom drawer, and looked at the small USB again, bridge. She did not touch it. She simply lifted the phone, captured it once more, then photographed the printed schedule on the desk with the final transfer time. The clock on the wall ticked toward a choice. She straightened the chair, lifted her bucket, and whispered, "Let truth arrive like a bell you cannot silence." The house exhaled, as if it understood that a door would open soon, and everything behind it would have to face the light. Outside, thunder gathered far away, promising rain. Inside, the mansion prepared for lunch. Ifioma rehearsed her smile. Chike reviewed his lines. Daniel sat in the garden with a notebook and a brave, frightened heart. Mama Grace, the queen who chose rags, walked toward the dining hall with steady feet. She had seen every face of betrayal. Now she would show them theirs. And when the bell rang, the world they built on her grave would start to shake. Rain whispered against the mansion windows that morning, turning the garden silver. Amara stood in the corridor, polishing brass handles that once gleamed for guests. Every sound inside the house carried a story: the sharp click of Ifioma's heels, the echo of Chike's phone calls, the quiet footsteps of Daniel, soft as prayer. Among them all, Daniel's presence felt different, lighter, as if he still lived in a world untouched by deceit. Watching him from the corner of her disguised eyes, Amara saw what hope looked like when it refused to die. Daniel moved through the house with gentle sadness. He greeted every staff member, thanked them for small favors, and never raised his voice. At 23, he was kind but lonely, trapped in a family that mistook gentleness for weakness. Each morning he lit a candle beneath his mother's portrait, whispering a few words only heaven could hear. Sometimes, Amara would stand behind a column, listening. "Mama," he would say, "I hope you're resting. I promise to protect everything you built." His voice trembled, not from fear, but from devotion. Amara's hands always shook afterward, her disguise heavy with unspoken love. One evening, she found him sitting alone in the garden, the candlelight flickering against the night breeze. "Young master," she said softly, approaching with a tray of tea, "you sit out here every day. Won't you catch cold?" He smiled faintly. "I like it here." This was her favorite spot. He glanced at the chair beside him, empty now but still carrying memory. She said the air here felt like forgiveness. Amara swallowed hard. "Your mother raised a good man," she whispered. He turned to her, eyes shining. "You remind me of her voice." She looked away, blinking fast. "Voices fade," she said, "but love stays." In the days that followed, Daniel began talking to her more often. He would find excuses to help with chores, carrying laundry baskets, fixing light bulbs, watering flowers. The other staff laughed at his humility, but Amara knew the truth. He wasn't helping her. He was helping the memory of his mother that she unknowingly embodied. He told her stories about growing up, how his mother would wake early to cook breakfast, how she corrected him gently instead of shouting, how she believed that a heart is measured by how it treats those who cannot repay. Watch out for Part 3, The Endgame. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting videos.